Hey everybody, Chris from 6 Wins, and I'm here with Matt, and I'm going to try to do this whole video without taking a single breath. So, the matchup we're doing today, it's two of Matt's favorite TV shows of all time. So
yes!
He's going to be taking the Roman reins on this one, and I am just going to give quick thoughts, but you saw the title of the video. We're doing this best TV show bracket, where we put all these matchups up to vote on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and here on YouTube. And we're in the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
The Switch Teen.
You can't even turn that. It's so hard.
Barely legal teens. What? Don't look at my church history. This matchup is a banger. And it's X-Files.
That's inside. I'm gonna keep going. It does the same.
That's good.
Yeah.
Versus Game of Thrones.
I can go longer on that one.
Yeah. It's so good. It gives me the willies.
Dude, I would jump up like when I was getting into it, and it was like because there was 8 seasons, I think. Like season 6, when it was like 5 and 6, when it was like peak Game of Thrones. When that song would come on Sunday night, I would jump up on my bed and I'd be like, I'd be like fist pumping. My like girlfriend at the time would be like, oh, Matt's excited. Oh, I love seeing you so excited. Like the most excited she ever saw me, which is sad. I apologize.
No, it's alright. Yeah. I get it. I'm the same way on Raw every night.
Yeah.
Especially when that theme hit.
Was it like the forget the knives, the charge, to take the fall, the same, nothing's forever.
What were we talking about?
Theme songs.
Theme songs.
We were doing X-Files and Game of Thrones theme songs. What are your favorite TV shows?
Ooh, I was gonna
Off
say,
the top of your head, really quick.
Top's like Fresh Prince.
Fresh Prince is like, oh my god, literally everybody knows Fresh Prince.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Go anywhere. That used to be a thing I would do in college, like Bell's Pizza, 3 o'clock in the morning, just.
You call them and sing the Fresh Prince?
No, we'd be there in person, or like at McDonald's. I'd always try to get people in on singing the Fresh Prince theme song. Wherever we were like at like a McDonald's or a diner or like a Bell's Pizza in college, everyone's hammered, everyone's having a good time. 99% of the time, people are gonna join you.
Yeah.
It's really cool. But then there's that weird 1% of the time where nobody wants to have fun.
What was do you have a go-to McDonald's order?
Dude, I haven't been to a McDonald's I can't remember the last time I went to a McDonald's. My wife, credit to my wife, I am usually pretty disciplined about what I eat throughout the week, but with her, it's even easier to do because she's really good at whipping up meals and it helps hold me accountable. Fresh Prince, probably Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones is up there. I like The Office. It's unique.
What about Friends? Do you not like it? I know it's like because it's super popular.
Yeah.
It's like a classic 90s adult alternative song.
Like you're always stuck in a second gear.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for singing. I can't carry a tune to save my life. I'll throw Friends on there.
Nice.
I would throw because South Park's my favorite TV show of all time, but I don't love the theme.
Yeah, they've done different iterations of it where they kind of it started out very folky and very just banjo-y the first lot of seasons. And then they threw in a little bit of different electric guitar and stuff. So we realized the Succession theme song because this one just had its last few episodes of this last season. I know a lot of people that are big fans I'm watching Succession and just wrapped up that last season that they were wrapping up and the Succession theme song goes hard. I'm like, what? So yeah, that's a good one. I would definitely have Game of Thrones on there. Maybe we should do a separate video. I'd have to think about it. It's too hard.
The matchup between X-Files, and Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Like I said, these are Matt's 2 favorite shows of all time. So I'll let him do most of the talking. I will say, if I'm voting, I'm going Game of Thrones all the way. I think X-Files was super cool. I watched. There was a stretch of time where it was on before Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. So I would actually tune in to X-Files and watch them. Mulder and Scully, they had a lot of good episodes. Can't remember any specifics off the top of my head, but Game of Thrones, just on a different planet, in my opinion, just because the production value and just the stories, and it's usually not my, like fantasy and just, but like those kind of period pieces or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think fantasy is good.
Yeah,
but
fantasy.
Fantasy costuming, so it's sort of,
Yeah, I was gonna say period piece, but it's not taking place in like a
any
real
specific period.
Yeah,
but it has the costuming of a period piece where everybody looks medieval or Middle Ages-y.
Yeah, for sure. So, Game of Thrones for me. Matt, take it away. I'm just gonna sit here and sip on my coconut.
I mean, you can't go wrong there. I want to throw out this fact to you that I'm not sure if you know, because one of Chris's favorite shows, debatably his favorite show of all time, is Breaking Bad. And one thing that I probably should have known, but as I was coming up with some like lists and topics and stuff to talk about, I was reminded of a name who worked on X-Files and was like a producer and a writer for several episodes, and that was Vince Gilligan. Before Breaking Bad, Vince Gilligan was working on X-Files, and they actually, Bryan Cranston was only doing Malcolm in the Middle there. He was very adamant about casting Bryan Cranston in one of the episodes he wrote for X-Files, which was just one of the one-offs. Yeah. Bryan Cranston played, I wish I remember the name of the episode, but Bryan Cranston was in there, and I think that honestly, it probably wasn't the reason he moved on to Breaking Bad, but I think like Vince Gilligan and Bryan Cranston like kind of meeting up there maybe set the stage and paved the way. So like X-Files, like if you like
I'm
the
going
kind
X-Files now. That's such a cool story.
Yeah. Like X-Files had a lot of talented people who would go on to make really well received narrative and written stuff anyway. But X-Files is also really good. So yeah, like you said, X-Files and Game of Thrones are probably like up there for two of my favorite like drama shows that aren't like comedies. When we built this bracket, they were up there, and I was like, Game of Thrones is the favorite to get here, but I was thinking like its last couple episodes, like really had people reassessing it and maybe like writing it off as not so good. So I was like, it could lose in the first round. People might just be like, they completely ruined it for me, and I hate it now. But Game of Thrones made it. Maybe not that surprisingly. And X-Files was kind of, what was it? It was in like it wasn't 7/10. It must have been...
X-Files was, let me pull it
because
up.
it must be like a 6, a 3 or a 6. It was a 6, a 6/11. And I thought like, and maybe it just got lucky because we were surprised Mad Men, we thought we seeded it too low anyway. But then it lost to X-Files, which definitely surprised me. It's like, oh, Mad Men's probably gonna actually be the one to like knock out Game of Thrones if Game of Thrones makes that far and go up against probably Breaking Bad. Yeah. So when X-Files beat Mad Men, then beat American Horror Story, and we were thinking Boardwalk Empire might do good too, I was just like, no way. X-Files, Game of Thrones. This is the best thing in my life. So cool. Like, this is my finals. Yeah. So I was super pumped about it. But you're going to say about, like, your feelings on kind of those matchups?
No, I'm just going to chime in because Mad Men, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a show that neither of us have seen all the way through.
Yeah, I have not seen all of it.
I've seen most of season 1. Great, just one of those shows I didn't stick around for. But if you Google top TV shows of all time, Mad Men is always super high up. Yeah. It's always, like, top 5, top 10.
I feel like it might be something similar to like Sopranos in about 10 or 15 years, where like people that will be like our age then, the age we are now, looking back at Sopranos and missing the like hype boat on it, will be like, why does everybody talk about Mad Men? Yeah. And there might be this kind of like, I don't think it was like that you go back and try to watch it and maybe it was just like a product of the times, or like some people will probably latch on to and be like, yeah, this actually is one of, up there, the top 5 of Sopranos. Mad Men's a top 5 for me. But you might also have the people that are just like, I don't know, I don't get it, which is I think is what Sopranos faces now if you kind of miss the boat on it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I just want to go through some X-Files, Game of Thrones stuff. Like these are 2 awesome shows, and I actually kind of was watching them in tandem. We both lived in California for a time, kind of like 2011, like 2015, 2016-ish.
Can we cut that out?
I'll like blur you and like, make it look like you're doing obscene gestures or something.
That's so dumb.
But that was kind of when like Game of Thrones, like I said the years, people will know. 2016, they'll be like, oh yeah, that checks out. Game of Thrones was kind of like seasons like 4 to 6 were kind of releasing then, maybe even like at 3 at that point. Jesus, where's my hair? This is really distracting.
And we're like,
X-Files was obviously done at that time, but it was a show that I was like convinced I wanted to go back and watch, and so I was kind of, those were like the 2 shows I was sort of watching on and off in tandem. So they are very like interlinked for me as well, even though they don't have much to do with one another. Game of Thrones is, even despite its ending, which I recognize as being less than powerful as it could have been or should have been, and less than ideal, it was not like an ending. The resolutions of the character arcs were not that surprising to me. They just weren't done as complete and as fully as they probably should have been to really give that total closure. It's not like I was like, and here come spoilers, Bran Stark is the one who sits on the Iron Throne. I knew, like, he was positioned for that for a couple seasons. That was not that surprising. I was like, it just, they could have made it a bit more interesting, a bit more cool, for him to like be there. And people wanted something else. They wanted Jon and Dany to partially incest each other, like Cersei and Jaime did or something. I don't know. But Game of Thrones, oh man, it was one of those shows that I feel kind of changed the course of like TV writing for a while, because it was one of the shows that people started talking about, and like I think a lot of storytelling, movies and TV around that time had fallen into like this safe, this like plot armor for protagonists, and they could be in any kind of danger, anything would happen, but you always knew, like, this guy's the protagonist, he's not gonna die, or something bad's not gonna happen, or like they're setting up for a bad thing, but it'll be like reboundable. Like a kind of close friend that was introduced 2 episodes ago dies, but he'll get over it because it's not another main side character. But this show was like, if you thought this protagonist was safe, you're wrong. And he died. And then you're like, oh, this isn't the protagonist of the show, it's somebody else. And they're like, there are no protagonists. If people make bad decisions, like people that might seem the most important to a story or to a world or to something, they can die just as well as the antagonists and things like that. And I think you see that a lot more in writing now, and I think people really enjoy that because it adds like more tension to the stories you're watching or reading. So I love that about Game of Thrones. That's one of my favorite things about it. But when I went back and watched X-Files, I realized X-Files did a decent job of that before Game of Thrones. There were some like characters and plot points that drastically changed like the characters, even though the main characters, Scully and Mulder, were never going to die. There was some very serious things that happened to them, or very other like protagonist adjacent characters that normally wouldn't happen, and was kind of surprising. And so I was like, wow, X-Files was a bit ahead of its time. So to pick which show is better, I think the answer for me is Game of Thrones. I love X-Files, but X-Files does a thing where about half to 70% of his episodes are just kind of one-off standalones with like a little, they're called like Monster of the Week episodes, where there's like a weird paranormal thing or extraterrestrial thing or some kind of spooky thing that they go out and solve, but it's just kind of self-contained in that episode. And the other 20% of the episodes kind of follow like this big narrative that like takes place over like the whole 4 or 5 like first few seasons. And so I loved the main narrative episodes because there's some really awesome stuff that happens there. But Game of Thrones is main narrative all the way. And the amount of characters that also have these like side stories that sometimes intertwine with the main narrative and sometimes with these side stories, but it all was linked so well. It's the most complicated but still tightest writing out there. And again, I'm such a fan of writing primarily, but like you said, Game of Thrones production is on another level. The amount of extras and set pieces and settings and filming that they did for it is, in a higher regard than a lot of shows as well. Game of Thrones is a better TV show than X-Files, but it's close. I love X-Files too. And how did the voting turn out?
So, when it was all said and done, X-Files versus Game of Thrones.
X-Files won.
Sorry. Game of Thrones did win.
Yeah.
It's moving on. That last season or the last few episodes hasn't slowed it down.
Not yet.
Hasn't had a problem.
Yeah.
So, let's see what faces in the Elite Eight.